Hello, beautiful souls. You are listening to Starfire, Elemental Alchemy and Zodiac Power Podcast.
where we are dedicated to transforming lives through the fusion of elemental alchemy and zodiac wisdom. Our mission is to empower individuals to harness their inner strength and cosmic alignment, creating profound shifts in energy and unlocking the true power of their astrological and elemental essence. My name is Cami, and I am one of your hosts.
And I'm Tracy, your other host. Let's get to it. Welcome to Gemini.
Yay! I'm so excited to be here with Gemini. Another love-hate relationship that I have.
And another one. It's not easy for Aries nor Gemini out here. Gemini, my dad's a Gemini, and honestly, it has taught me nothing because I just don't, maybe I just, it's so hard for me to understand him in the Gemini way or even in any astrological way. But I do see, some of the things, I can recognize some of the traits, just that, being able to be almost emotionless, very straightforward, a little sharp tongued, a little cold, but then also being able to be the life of the party and so entertaining and so funny and all the things. And I think the point is because we're talking about interacting here. We've come to the point of interaction with people, and that's exactly what we do. You know, um, we're either aligned or we're not aligned. And so Gemini is just breathing life into the whole concept, I think.
Yeah, Geminis they're so fun. Like literally, when they are on and they are in their full embodiment of being a Gemini, they love to talk, they love to laugh, they love to tell story. They are um, just excellent communicators in over communicating a lot of times. But they have a lot of story, a lot of most of them that I know when they are not a healthy Gemini, in my opinion, this is all my opinion. This is not anyone else's deciding how Geminis are. I have a lot of Geminis in my life, actually. And some of them are so in their head, so in their mental body that they can never get into their physical bodies. And so when they're in like the unbalanced Gemini, the narrative and the stories, instead of them being communicated outwardly, they're ruminating on the story inside. And they come up with these brilliant stories that um, don't exist most of the time. And then they withdraw and then they isolate and then they create whatever it is that they've decided that they're creating and then they come back out into the world when they've like been able to process whatever that is. So it's been a very interesting dynamic. I have a lot of friends, a lot of male and female, that are Geminis, and they are literally some of my favorite people. But they are, when they're cool, they're cool. When they're not, they're not. And I just let them be. I'm like, I'm gonna just let you do your whole thing, and then I'll wait for you when you decide to come back out.
I love that. I don't know if I remember this right, but I think I always thought I was a Gemini ascending. Maybe, but now uh I need to look at this birth chart of mine. Isn't
I'm
that
gonna look
funny?
at yours. Why don't I, while we continue to talk, why don't I look that up and see if I can
Oh
find
my
that for you?
gosh.
Because I'm pretty sure I have you in my system. If I don't, we can maybe take a pause, but I'm pretty sure you are in here. So let's keep
How
talking
exciting.
and I
Okay,
will look
well,
that up and go from there.
yes, you look at that. What I will do, let's talk about some of the characteristics of Gemini. So this is the third sign we come to on the zodiac wheel, and it's represented by the twins. So we're really coming into the idea of duality, interaction, and balance. right? We have Aries that sparks it off. Taurus brings it into the body, the awareness. I know I am here. And then all of a sudden, now I'm interacting with the Gemini. It is an air sign and it is mutable air as it is the last sign of spring. And so the mutable mode says, how do I expand upon this element? So, how do I expand upon my own perceptions and logic and knowledge? And that's where I think you get the devil's advocate because they can expand upon how they see things. They can look at it from other angles, which is a great thing. But that's where you were saying sometimes the fantasy mode kicks in. And hey, we're mutable Pisces, like mutable water. Like, I understand about fantasy, let me tell you. So I think it can work in beautiful ways where they can be great empaths, they can be great problem solvers, but they also can get caught up in their own fantasy world because it's that your mind being able to go to new, different places.
Hmm. Yeah, so that is, I mean, yes. All of this. Um, I do want to let you know you are a Gemini moon.
Oh, Gemini moon. I thought and I see, I always thought it was ascending, and I'm like, but I think I have that wrong. And I'm in
Your
a
ascendant
Virgo.
is a Virgo, which is
Yeah.
why the meticulousness that you have that is just amazing. And when we get to Virgo, we will go all into it because Tracy's Virgo is someone that I love so much and I need in my life so much. Especially as I am a Leo ascendant, and so
Mhm.
I need some wrangling back a little bit. And yeah, but when we get there, we'll talk about that.
There.
But yeah, you're a Gemini moon, so that kind of makes a lot of sense to me. You're a devil's advocate. This is you are always looking at all things and then coming up with your decision making based off of everything that you have put out in front of you. It's all about health, right? Like, so how you can maintain health within a healthy balance, with foods that you're bringing into your body, movements that you're doing in your body. Um, the caretaking element that you have, like that's your nature. And then in the moon, it's that emotional body, that mama bear, that mama heart. Yeah, so that makes a lot of sense to me to see you as that Gemini moon. And I think you're a healthy Gemini, in my opinion. Of that is not, you do. I mean, just like all of us, right? We all have the ability to get caught in our mind and stay there, and critique, and sometimes it takes us a little bit, but like we've talked before in other podcasts that we've done, is that we've been doing a lot of work on ourselves for a long time. And so we can catch ourselves when we start to go down those rabbit holes or those places that used to be maybe a really dark place in your life. I don't know if you ever want to go into, about who you were in the past, but I know for me that there are times I am a Scorpio moon, and that is a very dark place that I can go to, and that is in my mind as well, and in my body and in my heart. And so that is, I think there's a shadow side to everything. And in that Gemini space, in the moon, can be really shadowy, really dark. And
Oh, absolutely.
so, but I think right now you've done a lot of work to, the minute you start to go through something like that, then you're like, okay, wait a second. Now I have to like look at this. Take a step, take a beat. One of your favorite words that is, I am embodying now is like, okay, stop, take a beat. Oh
Take
my
a
God,
beat.
the words of Tracy.
I'm
I'm
glad you're
learning so
using
well.
it. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that makes a lot of sense. And thank you for that. Thank you for looking that up. And yes, I understand the darkness because our mind is the hardest journey. If we look at the four suits of the minor arcana, the swords is the roughest road because I think we are meant to lead with our hearts. I think we are meant as human beings with these souls. We are really supposed to at least have a 50-50 of our mental perspective and our heart's perspective. And we've just completely lost the idea that a heart is a communicator, and we're all in the mind. And so I think, that it causes this major imbalance where we're constantly getting trapped in this loop because we don't have this anchoring within our heart of just another, sounding board to bounce things off of. We don't have that connection to heart, which is when we say, oh, we've been doing work on ourselves. Well, that's what we've been doing. We've been tuning in a lot to what our heart's telling us to do and what our heart feels, and allowing us to feel things, right? And that's what brings balance to that mind. Like you said, then when your mind starts to go to places, you catch it and you go, oh, this isn't a positive thought for me. This is not good. I know where this is leading. And you rise out of that. But when we look at Gemini particularly, with them being mutable, and we can get to this later after we learn a little bit more. I'd love to talk about the house and stuff. But I mean, the 8, 9, and 10 of the swords is so much like mental strife. So much mental strife. And it's really all put on us by ourselves. And this is what Gemini is representing. We all represent something that we all have. We all have Gemini in us. So we all do this. It's just that if you know a Gemini, maybe that's something more of the, overshadowing part of their character. But we all have this stuff. So I'm going to read from the great Stephen Forrest and see what he says about Gemini, the twins. He calls Gemini the witness, the teacher, the storyteller. Like you said, you're like, they have a lot of stories to tell. And the journalist. The symbol is the twins. Who are they? Brothers, sisters, soulmates, lovers, two beings irrevocably bound together, fascinated with each other. Two beings, each hell-bent on unraveling the other's mystery, yet separated by an impenetrable wall of misunderstanding. What do? They talk, they listen, they scan each other for clues, for meaningful gestures, for half-hidden innuendos. Nothing escapes them. No detail is too minute. No trail is too cold. A bomb goes off in the puzzle factory. 1,000 puzzles blast to smithereens, a million pieces scattered like confetti. Two mad geniuses, both on methadone, attack the problem, each one swearing to have 500 puzzles assembled by dawn. Imagine that. It's Gemini. I think that they're hard workers. I'm going to say they're hard workers.
Yeah, I think that I mean, yeah, I think that they have this ability, but the internal dialogue can get the best of them at times. And so I think that that's where, and again, like we just said, we all have Gemini in us. And so that makes a lot of sense. And it's Mercury. Mercury is the planet that rules Gemini. So it is all about the communication, all about the headiness, logic, internal, the thirst for knowledge. So it's like this ebb and flow of push and pull of all things at all times. It's duality. So we are in this like massive expansion and contraction on a regular basis with Mercury. That's what happens, right? And then you have Gemini, who is can be really nervous, have nervous energy, because they don't know how to stop. They just bubble, 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 bubble. They are animated. They're social. They are flippant. Like they might say things that they don't necessarily mean, and then they have to retract those. You were talking about your dad. You're like, I just can't, because maybe he just says things and then is like, oh shoot, I didn't even think about what that actually meant or how that's going to land on someone else. So they can sometimes be, they don't think about the words that they're saying. They just say it because they have words to say. Um,
Right.
but they also can be super adaptable. They can be the one that's going to listen and listen for all of those minor details within the words or within the context. They can be really curious, and, you know, probably forever learners that are wanting to get all the information in all ways, having the support of Mercury in that sign. It's like absolutely all of it, like waterboarding almost. But then that's that internal dialogue that they might not be able to navigate between, you know.
And what is
Um,
the is it I speak? Is that the
I communicate or I speak.
okay, I
Yeah,
thought
is
so.
the affirmation or the words that join Gemini. And I mean that also, how beautiful is the twins with this? Because sometimes people think it's like, oh, these are all of the facets of the Gemini. Um, but the twins, they communicate without usually having to say any words. So it's how do you communicate with another being or another entity without having to have all of the words that are coming out of our mouth, but that are just embodied words, right? So I think that that's really interesting, that the twins is the symbol for that. I do want to let you know that the Gemini is ruled by Mercury. We just said that. That's
Ruling planet.
the ruling planet. Thank you very much. And it is in the third house. And the third house is all about thinking. So, again, communication, thinking, Mercury, Gemini. So, anytime, and air. So, anytime that you're thinking about processing or whatever it is, you can call on the allies of Gemini, Mercury, and air to help you navigate whatever that is and anchor in to that decision that you're making. Or again, it's that devil's advocate. You might be able to do that, what are the things that people do? Yeses and nos, or positives or negatives,
Hmm.
or, good or bad, or whatever that list that you can, write things down. It's like, okay, let's get that all out, and then we can make a decision based off of that. But these allies are really, they're amazing. Now, the other thing though, with being Mercury, Mercury goes into retrograde at least 3 times a year. And what that does is, now we were just talking about communication. When it goes into retrograde, it can distort communication. So it can make things happen within technology. Things get weird. The computers may or may not work. Um, your words may not be coming out the way that you meant them to be. And so to understand that when we are having Mercury go into retrograde, these may be a time that you really want to anchor into maybe an earth element or an earth body to help you communicate. So that is a little bit more advanced, I think, about talking about it, but there's something about communication at this time when there is a retrograde that we have to be really careful about the words that we say, and be a little bit more thoughtful about how things might come across or be communicated.
Hmm, very helpful words. I liked how you put that. I like to call on your allies of like, just think about Mercury, think about air as you're moving through some choices and drawing up the pros and cons. It's a very Gemini thing, right? Two sides of the list. Like it's all about balance and almost also like what I was talking about earlier, that balance of the head and the heart, and then that balance of communicating with the other person in front of you. And makes sense that the tarot card from the major arcana is going to be the lovers,
Yeah.
the two lovers, because that is representing the balance, the yin and the yang, the cohesiveness, the respect, the give and the take, and really the honoring of what it is of coming together. And with what was I feel like I'm missing my point, but should we just get into the tarot?
Yeah, let me just give one more thing
I
in
feel like that we
regards.
were on a roll there and I was going to comment on it and then I lost my thought.
This is what happens when we get into our minds, right? No, like how brilliant is that? When we flow off the cuff, when we are in our element, which is water, that is where we are super comfortable hanging out in. When we have to get into our air body and into our mind and into the intellect and think about it and having a process or notes that we're taking or any of those things, it messes me up every single time. Now it might mess you up a little bit, but you have Gemini in your moon, so it may be actually really good for you to tap into that and understand, like, okay, my mind might get away from me sometimes. What are the things that can anchor me back in? Is it that I take a beat and I think about it for a second, and then I move forward again instead of thinking and ruminating on, oh God, I just thought of something and now it's gone, and now and you know what I mean? Like
Oh,
then
absolutely.
we
And
start to build that.
I can definitely do that. I definitely can spin out a bit, and it's oftentimes from interactions with other people. I take on, that's a Pisces thing too, right? Take the emotions on, but I also take responsibility a lot, and then like beat myself up about things where I have to remind myself, like, hold on, stand firm in what you're doing. Don't get mixed up in what they're doing. But I get that journalist aspect too, and that storytelling. I'm very interested in the backstory about things and how things were put together. When I watch TV, I'm always thinking like, I wonder what their dressing room looked like, and I wonder how long they had to show up on set, like with something like, and I'm picturing who's behind the camera, and I'm like, I wonder where they, like, how did they make, like, I'm always fascinated about sets because I'm like, that's a lot to make that whole set with all that stuff everywhere. I'm like, I wonder how long it took people to make that.
Would never think of those things. So
Oh
that
my
is
gosh, but it,
100% you. Yeah.
yeah, oh, it spins me out. It does. And that's, I get caught in that loop for sure. And then it's when, because it's the moon, right? It's my moon sign, then I start to be attached to those narratives.
Yep.
And that's where I have to check myself. Like, don't become attached to this narrative just because you thought it out in your mind and it makes sense. It quite possibly might not be real.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm
Wow.
learning a lot here. This is like a therapy session. Oh my goodness. In fact, just with this like shuffleboard, see, people don't know the backstory. We got a shuffleboard secondhand. My husband doesn't like it. And I'm just like this, but he was out of town. So I was here when we chose it. I was supposed to make the call if it was good enough or not. Apparently, my choices are different. But this morning, I'm like feeling this anxiety, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's not even like you. I was like, Tracy, how do you feel about the shuffleboard table? And I'm like, I feel pretty good. I'm pretty stoked, and I'm also really happy that if it is kind of a piecer, that our children can now play with it, and I feel a lot better about it because I was a little stressed that we were going to show up with this nice shuffleboard table, and in a week it was well, a day that it would be ruined or scratched or whatever. And so I had this morning it happened, but I didn't realize like the Gemini part of it where I thought you need to let it go. That is his problem. That is his disappointment. And as Bashar always says, everything that is happening for us. There's something in it for all of us. So there's no reason to be disappointed because it's either learning lessons or something that we're gonna make a better choice down the future, in the future when it really matters because we're gonna remember this or whatever. Like it truly is. This moment is meant for everybody. We bought something and my husband's super bummed and it didn't, and that is just the way it is. But I was so in the like poo pooing on the whole thing last night and this morning just had to be like, that's that narrative that I am responsible. And I'm not. I'm just responsible for myself, and everybody else is responsible for how they take what is happening in their own reality as well. I have to let it go.
Let it go, let it go. Yeah. So again, house number three, the third house is the I think house. It's all about how we communicate and we think with others. So not necessarily about how we communicate with ourselves, but it translates to do the same because we can absolutely have negative self-talk, and that can make us communicate with others differently based off of that self-talk, right? What we were just talking about. What you're just
Yes.
you're going to adapt and adjust because that's what us Pisces do. That is 100%. That is a trait that comes in naturally,
Mhm.
and that we have to always try to either combat or make friends with. Um, because otherwise we're going to be self-critical of our innate ability of taking on other people's responsibilities. So how do we communicate and interact with others is the third house. So and now that can walk us into the swords, because swords are the tarot, and then the lovers as the major arcana. So if you want to expand on that, that would be great.
It's my favorite part.
And those of you who are not showing or haven't been to a circle live, because we've only done one of them so far, I did not go into the tarot as much as I wanted to. I only did the major arcana. I did not do the minor arcana. I am not the guru. I'm going to just say that, even though I know that that's not true. But I'm not the one that is as studied as Tracy is with tarot. Um, she definitely has been doing it a lot longer, and she has such a beautiful innate gift that I love everything that she always brings forward with the tarot, because now I'm learning so much more. And it has been really fun for me to get to learn the tarot this way. And so, yeah,
Well, thanks. That was a little unexpected intro to Madam Tracy. That's what that's what
Madam Tracy,
Brienne,
there you go.
my my friend calls me Madam Tracy whenever I'm doing my tarot.
I think that's a good one. I think that's a good one. Let's go for that.
Yeah.
Madam Tracy, it is now your ready to speak.
Here we go. Well, I am also always learning more and more about these cards and astrology and how they all relate. And what I'm finding is so we have the three cards from the minor arcana that line up with a suit or with a sign. Because if we remember, let's just break it down. Just the minor arcana is like a deck of cards, four suits, ace through 10, and court cards. But we're not looking at the court cards with all of this. So the ace through 10, the aces will represent all three of those signs within that element. And then it's broken up into the 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Can you speak, I'm so sorry, really quickly on what the signs are again, because those people may not know what we're talking about when you're talking about the three
The
signs. The cardinal.
oh, the yes. Wait, what's your question?
You said the ace represents all three signs.
Right. So, for instance, the Ace of Swords is going to represent Gemini, Libra, and an Aquarius, all the air
The
signs.
air signs. Okay, that's
Right.
what I wanted to
All
make
the
sure.
signs of that element. So, swords, air, and then the fire will be all three fire signs. The cups are all three water signs, and pentacles, earth signs. And there's a lot more to this that we don't need to get in right now, because we're just trying to. There's so much, and as I said, I'm still learning. And what really helps is just writing the zodiac wheel down and starting to place all of these things and making your notes, because it just gets in there. And it can be a lot at first when you start studying this stuff, because you've got planets, you've got signs, you've got elements, you've got um, constellations, and it can get you a little bit crazy. But when you find the pattern will bring you home. It's all about patterns. So, what we have is we have in the swords, the Gemini is represented in the 8, 9, 10 of the swords. And the 8 is Jupiter in Gemini. And Jupiter is very expansive, a very rising energy. And then we're in in your mind that can already kind of go back and forth. And they call it interference. And if you look at the card, it's a woman standing there. She's kind of tied up with uh, these ropes around her, and a rope, or not a rope, but something around her eyes. And then there's all the swords behind her. But it's not as dismal as you may think. The town, the little city, you can see it behind her. So it's not like she's out in the middle of nowhere. And then you're looking at the bondages that are wrapped around her. They're pretty loose. There, and I don't see anybody else, guarding her. And so what this is representing is feeling limited from our own, you can call it insecurities, our own narratives, our own whatever we're creating in our fantasy world. We will limit ourselves when those interferences don't actually really exist. So this is definitely kind of an inner turmoil for Geminis at this point. For a lot of signs, Jupiter is great. I mean, Pisces, we love Jupiters. We're like, woohoo, let's go on a rocket through the universe. Let's do it. What's out there? But for Gemini, who's already this back and forth and weighing the options and finding all the information out, and really, it's that accumulating knowledge. Now all of a sudden, to be so expansive, it's like you've seen too much, you know too much, and from there you feel threatened. When we move into the 9, it doesn't get any better because now we have Mars in Gemini, and now you have this like total fiery, planet coming along being like, let's take those ideas you have and those thoughts you have, and let's really kick them in the crotch there. And that turns into cruelty. And so you see someone sitting in bed, like sitting up, and their hands are on their face, and it's cruelty to yourself. And you mentioned that it is communicating in and out, but it's also how we communicate with ourselves. And at this point, when Mars comes to town, oh, the Geminis, they're taking it out on themselves in this moment. Um, and it's a hard spot to be because I think we all can relate to that moment I mean, I felt that way last night. I was like, I totally picked a shuffleboard that nobody likes. Well, one person didn't like. And I felt terrible. But again, that's where we have to come into acceptance for the current situation and ownership of who we are and what we can control, and stand on our ground, and move forward instead of taking on the responsibility within ourself. And I think that's what this 9 is really representing. And then finally, when we come to 10, it's the sun in Gemini. And there is positive aspects of this card because the sun is always good. It's shining light on your mind. But the picture is a guy laying down, and there's 10 swords stabbed all along the back of his body, and he's facing away. And it's called ruin. And so, I think tens are, what I say for tens is, it's the end for the beginning. It's already something new almost. And so there's a bit of a surrendering in this. Uh, you kind of mentioned at the beginning that the Geminis can have opposing thoughts, and maybe they get into their fantasy worlds with their ideas, and then they almost find it as a reason to retract and to be alone until they finally work through all that and are able to re-emerge. And I think that's what this sun in Gemini is. It's that moment where it kind of all falls into place for them. And well, why would we have that represented with a bunch of swords in their back? Well, we were just saying it's about taking responsibility for where we drew our lines in the sand and then where we stood. We all need to take responsibility. And I think that's a lot of what this sun in Gemini is. Sun is our solar plexus. It's tied to our, our life's purpose and life itself, creation. And so it's really shining light on things, and it's giving a new start.
Yeah, what I get from that energetic, just as I'm feeling into it, as soon as you started to talk about it, was this life and death. It is the end of what was and the beginning of what is. And so, and again, that's the tens, right? That is always going to be that kind of a duality in this. And it's not death as in dying and no longer being on this planet. It's, you know, the death to that part of myself that I was this. I'm now no longer choosing that, or I'm taking that beat and I'm going to have a little bit better communication skills now. That's that old person that used to jump off the cuff and would say things that would hurt people. I'm no longer going to do that because I'm going to take that step back. So it's that point in which we are able to reflect and um, reintegrate all of the lessons that we've learned and all of these parts. Like, when we're being told that in, the Eight of Swords with Jupiter, it's all about expansion. It's pushing us to an edge. It is pushing us to an edge that is really uncomfortable. And it may be really, really, really good if we continue to go through that and we keep pushing and we keep pushing. But also, there are other people that are like, that edge is really scary and I don't want to go there. And so I'm going to retreat. And you never actually get to the next card. You never get to Mars, where that's like breaking it all down and going through the inner turmoil and the judgments and all of the parts of ourselves that we're trying to break away and break out of, break the chains off of ourselves, right? And then when we get to this ruin, it's like, oh my freaking God, I can actually lay myself down. I can lay myself down. I can allow the chains to be broken off of me. I can have all the swords in my back, but I know that I am going to be a better person because of it. Like, that is the visual that I just got with Gemini's in this instant. And gosh, that just made me like, again, I fall in love with all of the planets and I fall in love with all of the signs and all of these archetypes as we're walking through them. But you just made me fall in love with the swords in the 8, 9, and 10 of swords, when I don't typically look at that as a very comfortable place. And it isn't, but there is beauty on the other side of that.
Right, that sun is shining light to who you truly are and who you really came here to be. And sometimes there is a little bit of like, okay, well, we got to rework a few things. And, being able to have those swords in his back, there is a surrendering of saying, yeah, I am the reason why I got here. Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, Gemini. Oh my God. I think we pretty much nailed everything. I did want to mention, because this is something that I realized with the tarot. So you'll always have those three cards from the minor arcana to associate with your sign. You'll always have that one card from the major arcana that really like gets your energy. But then there's 22 major arcana cards and there's only 12 signs. So not every single card is associated with every single sign. Like they don't match up perfect. But things like cards like the Fool is generally associated with the air signs because it's associated with air. So it's not taking any sign on particularly, but it is a bit of an air card. So all of the air signs can learn things from the Fool. And isn't that beautiful? Because that would come right after this 10, right? Of being able to be the new student, to not have the answers. That's a great balancer for them. And then you'll always have a connection from your ruling planet and what card connects with that ruling planet. And for Mercury, it's the Magician. So we get 6 cards in the tarot. Whatever sign you are, just know that you get 6 cards to offer you some insight on things that you may deal with in your life. And for the Magician being with Mercury, I think it is definitely a helpful one for Gemini, and it's tied to it because it is the interaction of our intentions, which do start, by speaking things into existence, manifesting them into existence, and that interaction that we have with the world when we ask and show up in our ways and do our things to make our reality what we want it to. There's an effect that happens and we get to then receive the abundance of what we set out. And that's why I think Gemini, the final message for Gemini is just you're a boomerang. And so you need to remember whatever you're putting out because you are just as much about the listening and receiving as you are about the giving and the speaking. You're doing it both. So just remember what you put out there, Geminis.
And what you put back into yourself. That's a
Ah, yeah. I
All
love it.
right.
I think
Thank
we
you
nailed
so
it.
much, you guys. We enjoy this conversation. We hope that you continue to join us as we are going through the rest of the planets and the rest of the astrological signs and tarot and all of the fun things. So continue to join us, follow us. We're so excited to be here.
Bye bye.